asked to shoot a short video on preemption drills and preemption tactics, and with me today is Dan White, who is a karate instructor and personal trainer, and I'm fortunate enough to be using his studio for today's video. So what I'm going to look at is reactive drills and proactive drills that you can do in your training, in class, for a fun way to develop preemptive skills. So if I can just borrow Dan for a second. Dan comes to this side of me. Obviously, preemption-wise, we could be looking at the fist, for people who prefer using closed hands. We could be looking at the open hand. If my distance has been breached, I might be looking at any kind of forearm technique, whether into the body or around into the face. Alternatively, depending on your preference, you might have an open-handed technique that comes and slaps from the side. So the type of attack you can use is largely up to you. You'll have to orientate the pad accordingly. Now I'm going to pick up one of these pads, Thai pad, quite suitable for punches if it's a flat surface one, otherwise palm strikes and obviously elbows. And the first thing we're going to do is reactive drills. What I'd like you to do is have your hands up in any kind of normal conversational position, so you're not giving away your intention to attack, and every time you see a visual stimuli, you're going to hit this pad with one of your longer range preemption strategies. You happy with that?
Yeah.
So I stand here, angled towards him, so I've got a little bit of shock absorption. I don't want this to go off to the side, and as soon as he sees the movement, he comes in with a strike. And it's a simple drill. And what you as the pad holder should be doing is pointing at if you see any telegraphs. So for example, this was far less obvious, it's his forward hand. When he preempted with his reverse hand, I saw far more movement and far more likely to turn and start to cover. So we get that feedback going in. The next thing I can do with Dan is I can turn this into a bit of a game, and I can describe my route to work, and when I give him a trigger word, maybe left, he has to hit on that particular word. So he's having to concentrate on my conversation while maintaining a guard. So as I came out of the house, I turned right, and I walked down the street 100 metres, and I turned to my left. And on turning to my left, I saw something that was happening on my right. And I realised at that point in time that I left something at home. And having left it at home, I had to go back. So going back, I turned to my left, and then turned to my right. And turning to my right, I saw something that was on my left. And we get the idea, you're having to respond to hearing and moving. And the more you do this, the faster you're going to become. What I can then do is mix and match. And these are all reactive drills, so he has to respond to either the movement or the word. And this time the word is going to be right. And you got that, right? Okay, now having done something, I walked down the street and I looked to my left, and right ahead of me there was somebody who was doing something, and that person was doing something rather illegal, possibly because they were in the House of Lords. So I looked to my left, and on my right hand side I saw something that was going on that was a little bit strange, possibly your card in a carjack. And having seen that, I'm wondering whether you are actually comfortable in moving and hitting, seeing what you're hitting. And you can see that I'm rambling slightly, but he's still having to pay attention to what I'm saying. He's still having to watch the pad. And that is a reactive drill. So he's had visual stimuli reaction of movement, he's had verbal oral stimuli of the sound. We can combine the two, so we can be listening out for both. The next thing we can do is we can take this up a level, and we can play games like Simon Says. So he only responds to the word if he actually sees the pad move. So he's really having to focus and concentrate, and I give him false leads, I give him movement without the sound, I give him sound without the movement. Alternatively, what I can do is start a whole conversation. Now he's actually going to have to talk back to me. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to me. We can be talking about anything. I will still use the word right as a trigger. You have to talk. When you talk, I'd like you to use your hands expressively. which means your hands are going to be up and therefore they're going to be in a fence. When you listen, however, if you're doing all this with your hands, it's going to look very unnatural. So you've got to get yourself comfortable in a high hand position, listening, without looking threatening, without looking closed off. Are you comfortable with that? So, what I'm going to do is, I'd like to ask you, whenabouts did you start training in karate?
About when I was 9 years old. Yeah, 9 or 10 years old. So.
And was Shotokan the first style you did?
Yeah, it was.
Right. And you can get drawn into the conversation. So I've used the word there out of a returning context, but in an agreement context. It's quite a difficult thing to do, but it gets people thinking, gets people used to processing conversation, as well as having to look out for stimuli, as well as having to act. And the pad holders have to think as well. So it's not a one-sided drill. And the pad holder should always be looking at the other person's technique. They should always be analysing it for telegraphs. They should always be thinking, am I doing the same thing? Can I do it that well? Can I do it better? How can I improve? So pad holding is not a one-sided exercise. Now that is a reactive drill. By contrast, what we can have is a proactive drill. And a proactive drill, what I could get down to do is he can ask some questions and he could move in terms of practicing his pre-empts at whichever range, whether it's this range, whether it's this range, and he can respond to me talking. He asks a question, a pattern interrupts question, and I have to take the hit on the pad. But he has to learn to follow his question and my moment of confusion with a hit. The other thing you might want to think about doing is a visual distraction. So while he's focused on the pad, while he's maintaining a conversation, what I'd like him to do is just become slightly distracted with his eyes with something that is either to the side to get me to glance to the side, or behind my shoulder to get me to turn and look over my shoulder, and then on having got me distracted, as soon as he makes me look, he should then hit. So as soon as he can make me look to one side or the other, he gets his hit in. Different drills. Reactionary drills, proactive drills. Proactive drills are things you want to do, predominantly because you don't want to be on the back foot while preempting. But you also need to react to the visual stimuli that something's about to happen. So there we've got a couple of different drills. You can take them up a level, you can escalate them by including verbal abuse, by including shouting, by including posturing. But at this level, they can be fun, they can be done by people of all ages, all abilities, in a non-threatening way to get those triggers up. And then you can build them up to something slightly more realistic. Thank you.